Chairman, could you instruct her to point it out on her own time?
And reclaiming the time, but the gentlelady from California, please proceed. We'll restore the clock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I don't want to use my own time saying, but I guess now perspectives and opinions are no longer important here in this committee. That seems like it would be a shame. Mr. Yang, we were talking about the census, and the question is, it kind of doesn't matter where you come from. If you're someplace, if you're using resources, it would be important for that jurisdiction, for that municipality to know that you are there. I mean, where I come from, if you get sick, you should go to the hospital. And the hospital's not supposed to say, well, who are you? Let me see all of your paperwork. I think the doctors take a Hippocratic oath to help anyone who's coming in bleeding, who would be wanting to need or use the resources that are available to them in that hospital. Do you understand sort of the question that I'm asking about why it's important just to know who is in a particular place?
That's absolutely right. With respect to public services, with respect to roads, that immigration status does not matter when it comes to the need for good roads, the need for good public services. And making sure we have an accurate count of our entire population. And again, if you even go to Supreme Court precedent in Ewenwell, they recognize that you should be doing total population counts, whole population counts for purpose of apportionment. The history on this has been very clear that the census is designed to count the entire population.
Thank you for that. You know, as I look at all of my questions, not one word in any of these questions is the word race. But so Mr. Yang, Assistant Attorney General Rodriguez says in his written testimony that apportionment should not account for those in a state unlawfully. What would be your response to that?
Well, I don't see anything in the Constitution that makes any sort of distinction. Rather, what the 14th Amendment provides in the census, in terms of apportionment, in Article 1, Section 2, with respect to the census, is the counting of whole persons. And it makes no distinction. Now, in the written testimony, it makes reference to the fact that somehow they should be part of a political community, but the notion of political community does not exist anywhere in the text of the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, or the Apportionment Act, and certainly even the contemporary dictionaries that he cited, except for a reference to parish law, did not make any reference to being part of a political community. Rather, simply a resident is someone that has a normal place of domicile. Now, to be clear, there are rules that the census has with respect to people that are transient, with respect to people that have tourist visas, for example, should not be counted in the census. There are residency rules with respect to the census as to what is considered a resident.
So you mentioned whole person. In the constitutional framers use the phrase whole number of persons rather than citizen or voter. And why do you think they did that? Because, of course, when you say whole person, and of course I think, and this time I'm going to use race, but I'm going to talk about myself. There used to be a time when a black person was not even considered a whole person. It was like 3/5 of a person. So I'm getting a little triggered by that phrase. Can you explain sort of why the framers used that phrase?
You're correct, Representative. Unfortunately, when the Constitution was first adopted, slaves were not considered citizens, but for purpose of the census was considered 3/5 of a person as a distinguished from a so-called whole person. And it wasn't until the 14th Amendment that citizenship was given to slaves, anyone born of slaves, and that sort of in making clear that when we are counting, we're still counting all persons in the state.
So tell me again, can you reiterate for the folks that can't seem to maybe hear what you're saying about why it's important to have an accurate count when you were doing the census?
Well, having an accurate count for purposes of data allows us to make sure that we have the services that we need in the United States for everyone. We need a society that has infrastructure for everyone. It is true for immigrants, non-immigrants alike. Certainly there can be policy debates around different aspects of that, but at least having the set accurate data that all of us can work from is critical to how this nation functions.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. And Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Thank the gentlelady from California. I will now recognize, and I will now represent the gentleman from Wisconsin.
Thank you for being easygoing on 5 minutes. That's what I do too. Okay, first of all, Mr. Yang, I just got to interject myself in here on something that you said that was, I thought, offensive. There is a 3/5 clause in our original Constitution that was the result of a compromise, I suppose it could have been 100%, but the reason it wasn't 100% is the freedom-loving people did not want to give the slave states too much power in Congress, okay? You imply that the reason it wasn't 100% was because people were trying to say black people were less than white people. That wasn't the point at all, you understand. The point is that the free states, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, those states did not want to give too much power to the slave states. So it was not done to punish slaves. It was done to looking down the road. Eventually we had a civil war anyway, but it was looking down the road to make sure that the slave states did not have too much power. Okay, you understand that. I hope you understand that, but you just explain the 3/5 thing in a way to make America look worse in the eyes of the young people. So do not appreciate that. Now, question for Mr. Miller. Has the census ever?
Mr. Chairman, could I, just a quick point of order. Would it be possible for me, after the gentleman speaks, to just respond to that, just because of the profundity and the depth of the statement he just made? I think.
It's a gentleman from Wisconsin's time.
And I don't mean to exactly. I don't want to detract from his time. I'm wondering if maybe we could go for a second round just to explicate that.
You and I can talk offline.
Okay.
We'll let the gentleman from Wisconsin
Okay,
continue his
very
questions.
good. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Miller, has the census ever included a citizenship question?
Yes, historically it has included the citizenship question.
Okay. Why was it removed?
That's speculative. I think that there were motives for that. You know, states would be motivated by it if they get more money from the federal government. There's partisan reasons why you would want to do it. There's a lot of reasons, and it's probably fairly complicated.
Who was the president at the time it was removed, you know?
The last one was 50, is what we said, 1950, so.
Truman? Okay, assuming you're right. Has the Supreme Court ever held that it's illegal to include this question?
No, I don't believe the Supreme Court has ever weighed in to say that you cannot ask the citizenship question.
Could President Trump and Commerce Secretary Letnick add a citizenship question to the 2030 census?
Yes.
Okay. Could you give me some benefits? I mean, I'm shocked that it's not on there already, but do you want to speculate on some benefits we'd get if we added such a question?
Well, I mean, it would impact, especially if you got rid of differential privacy. You could know how to allocate federal funding formulas more accurately to make sure that it's going to citizen or lawful permanent resident populations that legally qualify for them. If you want to have this impact redistricting and you want to argue on a constitutional basis that political districts should only represent citizens or citizens and lawful permanent residents, that you would need to know that data, and that would have a massive impact on how political maps are made and who is in Congress.
Couldn't we also assume that people who are not here legally probably aren't going to be hanging around that much longer?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, a lot of them have been here for a long time. Some of them are seasonal workers and leave after a couple years. So it's hard for me to answer that precisely with such a large population.
I think, okay, not across the board, but wouldn't one expect that if some people were here legally or on a temporary visa, that they weren't going to be here for the whole 10 years or maybe even
That's correct. There's a lot of movement of that population both into and out of the United States of America.
Okay. Could you explain the differential privacy controversy, I'll put it?
Yeah, so basically, you have data, and there's been previous methods of keeping that recognizing data privacy laws, and so there was different methods of protecting privacy, and this is a new method, but it's highly flawed because it scrambles all of the data. It literally deconstructs an entire person, reconstructs them in the aggregate all over the place. There's arguments that will disproportionately help urban areas. There's arguments that will disproportionately hurt rural areas. There's racial issues here, but basically it's fake data below the state level, and it's really hard to create political districts that are accurate and representative of the voting population, especially when you don't have accurate numerical population data at a granular, semi-granular level.
Would you support returning to what we'll call swapping for the 2030 census?
I think there's several other proposals. That is one, combined with the ability to turn off characteristic data until you're at statistically significant levels. There's other methods that are and strategies that are multi-tiered that are mentioned by entities like IPMs that I think would work. So essentially, yes.
Okay, thank you.
With the gentleman,
I think the gentleman from Wisconsin would, regarding,
but I was just wondering if I just wanted the opportunity to respond to Mr. Grothman's intervention.
it's the gentleman's time, but out of courtesy to the ranking member, I'll give the gentleman like 30 seconds.
Okay,
Move on.
I just want to say that the analysis he advanced is historically obtuse and morally disoriented. The slave states took the position that the enslaved African Americans should count 100% for the purposes of reapportionment, but for those purposes only. They didn't have any civil rights, they didn't have any voting rights, they couldn't run for office, they had no civil liberties, they were property. The northern states said they should not count at all.
Reclaiming our
they
time.
They should count zero, and they arrived at the 3/5.
Reclaiming the time.
Yeah.
There's time, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
We're going to have a history lesson here. The gentleman from Wisconsin was making a point with respect to the oft-used 3/5 reference.
I was trying to explain what the
with
historical
respect-
genesis of it
right,
is.
and the history of it. The gentleman from Wisconsin characterized it from his perspective, and I think it was important for me to put that on the record. And I think it's been asked and answered, and we don't need to have a history lesson on it. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed with my questions.